Good evening. Good evening. Our first song this evening will be number 643. 643. The Lord my shepherd is, that I shall be well supplied. Since he is mine and I am his, what can I want beside? What can I want beside? He leads me to the place where heavenly pastures grows, where living waters gently pass, and full salvation flows, and full salvation flows. If e'er I go astray, he doth my soul reclaim, and guides me in his own right way, for his most holy name, for his most holy name. Our next song will be number 829. I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one, that silver line. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely, I'm not discouraged, I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a robe and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely, I'm not discouraged, I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a robe and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are purest gold. Amen.
Jason and Kevin are both out of town tonight, so you get third string. We're going to be looking at Bartholomew tonight. And as some of my astute fellow Bible people said, it's going to be short, isn't it? We'll see. My wife reminded me, speak where the Bible speaks and remain silent where the Bible's silent. I decided I'll speak where the Bible speaks, and 50% is better than none. So there are 4 places that Bartholomew is mentioned. All 4 of these places is the 4 lists of the 12 apostles. And there are only 4 times the 12 apostles are listed. So let's begin in Matthew 10. Matthew 10, and we'll read 1 through 8. And he called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits, to cast them out and to heal every disease and every infirmity. The names of the 12 apostles are these. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out, charging them, "Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and preach as you go, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons." Jesus gave these 12 apostles a lot of power when we look at what he told them to do. And he gave them the power to do it. Now let's go to Mark 3. Beginning with 13th verse. And he went up into the hills and called to him those whom he desired, and they came to him. And he appointed 12 to be with him and to be sent out to preach, and have authority to cast out demons. Simon, whom he surnamed Peter, James the son of Zebedee, and John the brother of James, whom he surnamed Boanerges, that is, sons of thunder, Andrew and Philip and Bartholomew and Matthew and Thomas and James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus and Simon the Canaanian and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Acts 1, 13, beginning with 13. And when they had entered, they went up to the upper room where they were staying. Peter and John and James and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James, all of these with one accord devoted themselves to prayers together with the women and Mary and mother and Jesus with his brethren. Now, one other place in Luke, the 6th chapter, beginning with the 12th verse. In these days he went out into the hills to pray, and all night he continued in prayer and to God. And when it was day, he called the disciples and chose from them 12 whom he named apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, Andrew his brother, James and John, and Philip and Bartholomew, and Matthew, and Thomas, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon, who was called a Zealot, and Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. These are the 4 times that Bartholomew is mentioned. I left this one in Luke to last because I don't know if you've ever caught this. I hadn't caught this until this week, and I'm always finding something new, but when we look, beginning in the 12th verse, in those days he went out into the hills to pray, And all night he continued in prayer to God, and when it was day, he called his disciples and chose from them 12. Jesus prayed all night before he selected the 12. What did he pray about? We don't know. We're not told. You'd make kind of an assumption that he was praying about who should I choose, but that's an assumption. You know, the Bible teaches by command, by example, and by necessary inference. And the last of it, necessary inference, means that if it infers it, there's no other way you can infer it. So whenever I say that he may have been praying about the 12, who to choose, how many to choose, and who to choose, talking to God about that, that's an inference. But it's not a necessary inference. He could have been praying about anything else. May not have ever mentioned it. May have already had his mind made up. But I like the fact that the selection of these 12 who are going to be so important to the church was made after an all-night prayer session with God. Have you ever had a really important decision to make? Most of us have. Have you ever spent all night in prayer before making that decision? All night. He prayed a lot. Well, we're supposed to study Bartholomew, and that's it. We've studied Bartholomew. Y'all have a good night. Not quite that easy. I brought some other notes just in case we needed them. Yes. That's what the rest of the night's about. That's the rest of the night. John, in his account of the gospel, does not list the 12 apostles. The 3 synoptics do, but John does not. But John brings up an interesting character. In John 1, and he's interesting because of the name Bartholomew. Bar, as you might remember in Hebrew, signifies the son of. So Bartholomew may well have been in the Hebrew Bartolomai, T-O-L-M-A-I. That would have been Bartolomai. In English, it would be Bartholomew's. Pretty close to Bartholomew. So that's a possibility. That's called patronymic name, which means it's going to the patron. It shows the father, like Simon Bar-Jonah. Jesus called Peter Simon Bar-Jonah. That's Simon, son of Jonah. Jesus would have been known as Jesus Bar-Joseph, and he would have been known as son of Joseph because that's the way the world saw him and viewed him. That would have been his name. It's interesting that in those times when someone used a bar something, today we have similar things in English. You have Johnson, Jackson. This Johnson, son of John, Jackson, son of Jack, that's the way they started. So it's not unusual for a man to be associated with his father in the name. But when a surname was used with the bar, normally there would have been another name attached to it, Simon Bar-Jonah. So if Bartholomew was Bartholomeus, then you would expect another name to be attached to it. So it's possible that this man, this apostle, Bartholomew, name was Bar, son of Ptolemaeus. It's also possible he was just a guy named Bartholomew. And that's just the way he was. He was just Bartholomew, and that's all we know about him. There's other of the 12 apostles that we don't know anything about except they're in the list of the apostleship. So it wouldn't be unusual for him just to be Bartholomew. Down through the ages, many of the Bible scholars have leaned toward a man that John talks about here in the first chapter, beginning with the 43rd verse, a man named Nathaniel, as being Nathaniel Bartholomew. There's several reasons behind that which we'll look at. One is they point out that the name Nathaniel is never used in the Synoptic Gospel or in the list of the 12. John doesn't mention the name Bartholomew of the apostles, but also John doesn't mention 7 other apostles of the 12. So to me, that's not a demanding argument that because John doesn't mention Bartholomew, that he's talking about Nathaniel instead of Bartholomew. If you're trying to take Bible information and prove a fact, if you take the Bible information and develop a fact, that's one thing. If you take a fact and then try to go get Bible information to prove it, that's something entirely different. So let's look here in John 1 at this man named Nathaniel, beginning with the 43rd verse. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said to him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You shall see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Now, when Jesus called some of the other apostles that we have information about, for example, Andrew and Peter, Jesus said, "Come, follow me." 2 others, he called them. So he said, "Come, follow me." He called them. The first thing to notice in this reading is Jesus does not say, "Come, follow me." Neither did he call him. Nathanael came to him on his account because Philip is the one that told Nathanael. So just kind of keep that back there in your mind as we look at this. If we remember the lists of the 12 apostles, In 3 of those, in the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Philip and Bartholomew, they're listed together. James and John are listed together, they were brothers. Peter and Andrew were listed together, they were brothers. But in each of those lists, Philip and Bartholomew were listed together. Does that mean that there was a special connection between Philip and Bartholomew? May not. That's another point that the scholars make to show that Nathanael and Bartholomew were the same, saying that Philip and Bartholomew being listed together show a particular closeness. And the call here, when Jesus came to Philip, and you notice when he came to Philip, he said, "Follow me." There in 43, here it is again, "Follow me." Philip didn't immediately follow him. He went over and found Nathanael. It appears, I think that is probably a necessary inference, that there was a previous relationship between Philip and Nathanael. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just gone to a guy sitting under a fig tree and said, "Hey, do you know about Jesus?" It appears that he went and sought out Nathanael. Okay, Jesus called Philip, "Follow me." Same as Peter and Andrew, James and John. Philip went to get Nathanael. Now look what he did when he went to get Nathanael. Peter found Nathanael and said, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph." The implication, at least, is that Nathanael knew the Scriptures. Because when Philip went to get him, he referred back to the Scriptures. He referred back to, this is the one that Moses wrote about, this is the one that the prophets wrote about, implying that Nathanael knew the Scriptures. It also implies to me, this is opinion, that Nathanael and Philip may have read the Scriptures together for Philip to know that Nathanael knew the Scriptures. So it may be that they had been studying together, they had been looking together, they had been wondering together, they'd been searching for the Messiah together, and when Philip found him, the first thing he thought about was, "I got to get Nathanael." So he goes and says, "Nathanael, we found him. Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Now, the son of Joseph, as I mentioned, in those days, he would have been known as the son of Joseph because that Joseph was his earthly father, not his true father, but his stepfather, his earthly father, the one who had raised him, the carpenter who taught him to be a carpenter. So, the son of Joseph, and he's from Nazareth. This blew Nathanael's bubble altogether. What did most Jews expect of the Messiah? That's a question. What did most Jews expect of the Messiah? Pardon? Get rid of Rome, okay. That was probably a secondary thing. There was one more important than that, I believe. What? You're going to speak louder than that, or I'm got deaf. He was from Bethlehem, okay. That's what the Scripture says. No, it doesn't really say he's from Bethlehem. It says he was to be born in Bethlehem. Big difference. He was born in Bethlehem. What they really expected out of the Messiah was for him to set up an earthly kingdom and overthrow Rome, overthrow everybody else. set the Israelite nation back up in a physical, earthly kingdom. That's what they expected out of the Messiah. And from that, these other things would come about. Get rid of Rome, whatever all went along with them setting up an earthly kingdom. He was predicted to be the king of the Jews, king of Israel. So if he's going to be king of Israel, surely there's a kingdom to be set up. Now, Nathanael knew all of this from his studies. And Nathanael, being from Cana, knew about Nazareth. Nazareth was not a really highly respected town. It's set at a crossroads, a major crossroads, east-west traffic and north-south traffic, caravan traffic, and all the things that went along with a crossroad city or town was attributed to Nazareth. Cana was only a few miles away, both in Galilee. So Nathanael would have known about Nazareth. And in his mind, I'm assuming now that it clicked and said, the King, the Son of God, the King of Kings, the King of Israel, surely couldn't come from a place like Nazareth. And he said it in this way: can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nazareth is so bad. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Now, what would we normally expect Philip to do? Well, Nathanael, let me tell you, the scriptures say this, and the scriptures say this, and the scriptures say this, and look over here and open this book up, and let me show you, and let me point you, and let me tell you all about it, and listen to me, because I really know what I'm talking about. But look what he did. Philip said to him, "Come and see." That's pretty simple, isn't it? You don't think anything good could come out of Nazareth. I believe Jesus, this Jesus, the son of Joseph, is the Son of God. You come and figure it out for yourself. He didn't try to cram the scriptures down his throat. He didn't try to browbeat him. He didn't try to out-argue him. He just said, look at the facts. Brethren, I believe that today, when we talk to someone about the Son of God, about Jesus, about the church, about the Christian way of life, and they began talking, maybe what we ought to say is, come and see. Let's open the scriptures up and see what they say. This is how we come and see today. Nathanael apparently respected Philip enough because he did come. There in 47, Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said to him, "Behold, an Israelite in whom is no guile." Behold, an Israelite. Now we know for sure that Nathanael was an Israelite. We would have assumed it because he knew the scriptures, but now we know he's an Israelite. But he is a specific Israelite in whom there is no guile. He doesn't have any deceit in him. We know that Jesus condemned many of the Jews when he began teaching for their deceitfulness, their hypocrisy. But he said that this man, I perceive, you don't have any deceit in you. You don't have any hypocrisy in you. You're a pure man. Nathanael seems to be a thinker. Philip said, I found him. He's from Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? I understand you're an Israelite and you have no guile. How do you know that? Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? Here's the question again. What do you do? How do you know? You don't know me. I've never met you. You've never met me. Why do you say I have no guile? Jesus answered him, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. There are several possibilities here. One is, sitting under the fig tree, it's kind of interesting. A fig tree is mature fig trees about 15 feet tall, and the branches will spread out 25 to 30 feet. Provides a real nice shade underneath. These fig trees were a very popular tree to plant around a house because the houses at that time were masonry houses, mud, bricks, whatever. Some of them didn't even have windows. They just had a door. The cooking would be inside. Some of them were very smoky inside. Most of them in the warm season were very warm, were hot inside. And so it was very normal for people to go out and sit under their fig trees, whereas in the shade and they'd get some breeze. So it was also popular at the time for people to go out while they're sitting under the fig trees and using that for a place to study the scriptures, to sit and think, to drink their tea. And here's a possibility. Could be a lot of other possibilities. Nathanael may have been sitting under the fig tree reading the scriptures. He may have been sitting under the fig tree drinking coffee. He may have been sitting under the fig tree watching a parade go by. We don't know why he was under the fig tree, but he was under the fig tree. Now, Jesus may have walked by the street and saw him under the fig tree. Before Philip called you, I saw you under the tree. That doesn't fit too good with the context because that wouldn't really shock Nathanael. Oh yeah, I remember I saw you walking by. But with the shock that comes on Nathanael, it appears that he's telling Nathanael, I wasn't anywhere around you, but I saw you under that fig tree. That appears to be the interpretation Nathanael makes of it. Because his immediate response is, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. So it appears that Nathanael understood Jesus to say, I was able to see you over there, I'm over here, I saw you over there. You want to know how I knew there was no guile in you? I knew you over there before you ever came to me. Nathanael put that together in his mind, maybe with scriptures, maybe with his thoughts, maybe with his hopes. But he put all that together and said, you are the Son of God. Look what Jesus does. Jesus answered, because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? That can be taken a couple of ways. One is Jesus was incredulous. He just couldn't understand how Nathanael, just because I said I saw you under the fig tree, that made you believe? You really ought to know a whole lot more than that before you believe. That could be one way, you mean it? Doesn't appear that way in the context, though. Nathanael, you are so pure that all I had to do was tell you that I saw you under the fig tree, and that brought your belief full circle. Now remember, Nathanael started out saying, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And Philip said, come and see. So he came and he saw. Now, did Jesus talk to him more than this? We have no idea. This is all that's recorded for us. Jesus may have talked to him more, may not have talked to him more. But what we do know is Nathanael, because he went and saw, Nathanael was maybe not a bigot. Nathanael was biased against people from Nazareth. But after he came and saw, he set that bias aside and said, you truly are the Son of God. Yes. Yes, Jesus did acknowledge, he said himself as Jesus of Nazareth. Apparently, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. No, I shouldn't say apparently. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Apparently, they moved to Nazareth. Or they were living in Nazareth, but they'd gone over for the tax count, and then he was born in Bethlehem. They went back to Nazareth. But apparently Jesus was raised in Nazareth. He was also known as the Nazarene because he came from Nazareth. So Nathanael has lost his bias now. This is something we have to be careful of. If we have a bias, we have to make sure that it is not just a pure bias, but we need to get the facts and get the data and have the facts prove something one way or the other, not just make an opinion and stand staunchly on that opinion and fly in the face of facts. Yes. Yes, sir. Excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We're about to run out of time. Yes, we understand that fig trees are very popular over there. Now, Jesus said, because I said to you, I saw under the fig tree, do you believe? You shall see greater things than these. And he said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. This is another point that the scholars use to say that Nathanael and Bartholomew were the same, that Nathanael was going to see greater things. Now, the greater things that he talks about here are the heaven opening up and the angels descending and ascending. It kind of reminds you of Jacob's ladder, the angels going up and down Jacob's ladder. If that's the simile, then Jesus would be the ladder. But it definitely says, Jesus is saying, you will acknowledge, you will see, you will understand that I am the way between heaven and earth. And we know John put it that way in John 14:6, where Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man come to the Father but by me. So Jesus is that way. And he told Nathanael that he would see that. So the scholars get on that and say, so he must have been one of the 12. But there were a lot of other disciples. Remember, when he chose the 12, there were a lot of other disciples that had been going around with him and would continue to go around with him, but they would not be the select 12. So, let me kind of give you a 2-minute summary here. Bartholomew is listed 4 times, the name Bartholomew. And it's always in the list of the 12. And if it's a patronymic name, then we'd need another name. If it's not, then it's just some guy named Bartholomew. Nathanael had an encounter with Jesus at Philip's request, and due to Jesus' insight into Nathanael, Nathanael declared that Jesus is the Son of God. Nathanael was told that he would see Jesus as the stairway to heaven. Now, in John 21, we see the last nail that the people want to use, who want to make Nathanael and Bartholomew the same. In John 21, the first 2 verses, after this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others. There's 7 people. Were these 7 of the 12 apostles? It's a possibility. They'd gone fishing. They'd said, Jesus has been resurrected, and he comes and presents himself, the 3rd time he presents himself to the apostles here. But were these 7 men, 7 of the 12 apostles, or were they 2 or 3 of the apostles and some other guys who happened to be fishermen also? Did they say, you know what, we don't know what's going on, we might as well go catch some fish? They weren't out with rod and reel sport fishing, they were out with nets looking for food to make money. They were plying their trade. So we have Nathanael there, and people want to say, okay, there he is as part of the 12, but that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says he was one of 7. And 2 of those 7, the Bible doesn't even say who they are. So, what does it all boil down to? 1 minute. It may be Nathanael Bartholomew, Nathanael Bartholomaeus, or it may be Bartholomew was a guy and Nathanael was a guy, because in John, where Nathanael is talked about, Nathanael is never called an apostle. Jesus said, you're going to see these great things, but more than just the 12 saw those great things. So I spent 40 minutes of your time saying, we don't know. See, I told you after we looked at Bartholomew, you could have gone home. You should have gotten up and left. Anybody have a half a minute comment? No? No. Definite maybe. Yes. Right. If it's 2 different people, they were both disciples. If it's one person, he was a disciple. And what difference does it make? Thank y'all.